Hi, Gemini. Happy New Year. It's Susan, and I'm here to share some information about the year to come, 2024. It's an exciting year for Gemini. There's a lot here that is really nourishing for you. You're going to work hard for sure, but it's going to be going in the right direction for a very long time to come. So I would say that one of the things I would overall for the year, I would suggest that you really learn to focus, narrow things down if you have any ambitions at all, because it will be a year where you're challenged and pulled in every single direction. Um, so focus on a couple of top priorities, maybe 3, 4 priorities that will get you through the year, and don't try to do it all at once. That might apply for 2025 as well, but I'll come back to you next year. I'd say it's a good life advice for Gemini rising particularly. So this is for the sun, moon, and rising sign in Gemini. If it's your rising sign, or what we call the ascendant, that's going to show up in a more obvious way. You'll notice that in your life. It'll show up in ways that you can identify in the worldly experience. If it's your sun, it has a lot to do with your role in life, your sense of purpose, or your sense of identity and how you navigate through life. And if it's your moon, it'll be more like how you feel, what you might be thinking, your emotional nature. And so it's much more interior to you. And it may not show up too obviously to people around you, but do listen for all three. The three together give you an interesting layered image of the year ahead. And of course, these are general readings. So if you want to know personally how this is going to be, you'll just have to get a personal reading. And that's not a sales plug, it's just the truth. So there we are, whether it be me or somebody else, you need to know how this is affecting your chart specifically. Let's jump in through January, Gemini. So you've got a trine now from Pluto, which is really going to boost you a lot. So Pluto on the 21st of January is moving in along with the sun into your ninth house. And that's a sign-based trine. So especially if you have things in Gemini, personal planets, or your ascendant, for example, in Gemini at 0 to 2 degrees, this will be really, really favorable for you, really lifts your sails. And so this is something that you'll experience for a couple of decades. This is a real boost in terms of understanding your purpose in life, which will transform without a doubt. Pluto is all about transformation. It's about getting deep into what is true, what is real. That can often be the hard way. So that Pluto energy can be very much about digging deep into things that are uncomfortable as well to get to the truth. So I invite you to see my video from last year on the Pluto entrance into Aquarius, because that, of course, applies for this entire time. Now, Pluto is there from the 21st of January up until what is it now? The 2nd of October, is it? Sorry, the 2nd of September. So Pluto backs up into your 8th house from the 2nd of September until the latter part, I think it's the 24th of November. And that's just a little glimpse back into the stuff that you dredged up with Pluto in your 8th. For some of you, that would have been a time of real psychological transformation, maybe a time of recognizing your relationship to intimacy or your own unprocessed childhood issues that can be even quite difficult, things that might have been dragged to the surface. That again will depend on your natal chart, but the 8th house is also the house of occult and astrology. So you may have actually grown in your interest in astrology over these last 15 years, and especially this year, you're going to be now moving, whatever it was that you discovered, whatever churned up in that 8th house, you're moving into the more public realm now in the 9th house, which can be about teaching, sharing, counseling, expressing what you learned. And for a Gemini, that's kind of how you roll. So this would be really, really helpful if you are somebody who teaches and counsels. So the 8th and 9th house resemble the sort of two sides of astrology. The 8th house is the hidden aspects of it. It's the wisdom, the kind of more occult and hidden practices, the secret stuff, the sort of mystical knowledge of it. And the ninth house is the application of it. It's the counseling, advising, teaching, making use of that. So I suppose if you're watching a video on astrology, that's something that interests you inherently, but for some of you might even turn into a more rich experience of your career. Or at least something that you find very important throughout your life. So this ninth house can also be about fathers. So I'm going to let you watch that video that I did on Pluto for more detail, because I go really in depth about the Pluto in Aquarius there. And here I'm really just skimming the surface. It's really just to give you an image of the year ahead, and having a sense of what is, what's important for you. So while we have Pluto in Aquarius, it's moving between 29 of Capricorn at the beginning of January, and it goes just till over 2 degrees. I think it's 4 minutes into the second degree of Aquarius. So the first and second degree of Aquarius are the new points that Pluto was covering in 2024. It only just got into the first half of the first degree in 2023. So again, it will be a little bit of new territory for some of you, and it's going to go back and forth over old territory, especially if you have placements in the very, very beginning of Gemini. You can give that an orb of about 2 degrees, and more depending on what's there. Again, that is a chart interpretation question, so I leave that open to you, but it's going to affect early Geminis anyway in 2024. Pluto goes retrograde on the 2nd of May, and then it stations direct on the 11th of October. So Pluto goes retrograde half the year, every single year. That's not exceptional. So it's not something that you need to necessarily know about. It's just that will then shift back into your into your 8th house from that point on, just so you can keep track of that. And then, so we also have in later in January, we have a full moon where Uranus is going to be stationing direct 2 days later. So the full moon is on the 25th in Leo. That's in your 3rd house. So there is something here in the axis of the 3rd and the 9th house, where the sun will be conjunct Pluto, and the moon itself is at the sun and moon are at the 5th degree. Now that 5th degree becomes important in December, because that's roughly the degree that Mars is stationing retrograde at on the 5th of December. So I'll refer to that again later. So we're going to tie these two ends together, the January and December ends of the year. We're going to tie them together. Then Uranus is stationing direct on the 27th, just 2 days after this full moon, and that's in your 12th house. So you've had Jupiter and Uranus moving closer and closer, and then moving farther and farther away in 2023 since May. And that is now going to start to activate as we get into the early months of the year. So Jupiter will be covering the same old territory up until the 23rd of March that it was covering in before it turned retrograde in September. And so there's some old things that you're going to be churning up in that 12th house that is could have something to do with secrets, that not all secrets are bad necessarily, but things that are secret or private to you, things that are behind closed doors, issues of relationship, depending again on your chart, depending on what's going on in your life and the phase of life that you're in. It can be also about business, things that you engage in terms of faraway lands or people from a distance, or business that is done in the way of what we're doing here, in the sense of counseling or helping people or researching behind the scenes. Jupiter and Uranus in the 12th house will be coming together closer and closer all through April, and then the exact conjunction is the 21st of April. And that conjunction can bring you incredible insight. So if you are a researcher, or if you're somebody on a spiritual path, then that can just bring you incredible flashes of insight, especially because it's also sextiling Neptune around that same time. So April, May, and into June, and that is sextiling Neptune. So really, really interesting energy for your personal discovery, your spiritual discoveries. I like that very much. So we also in February have Chiron, which is coming closer and closer, already from the beginning of the year, coming very close to the North Node. And Chiron has been in your 11th house, where you might have been revising your future or having a sense of what might be holding you back from connecting socially or connecting in the way that you might want with groups and associations, or realizing some aspect of yourself that's holding you back from achieving what it is that you want in terms of your life vision. So the 11th house, much like the ninth is your purpose, and the 11th house is your vision for the future. So they're very similar. They're both future oriented. And with Chiron there's something that you might find, since spring of 2018, or since April, May 2018, you might find that there's something from your childhood that has been awakened, where you're having to recognize where you're holding yourself back from your own goals or your own dreams. This often comes together with some kind of self-esteem issue, or way of having been raised in a way that made you feel less than worthy, or less than intelligent, or whatever. It would have to be seen in your natal chart, what that feels like from the vibe of your chart. But when it's going to move into the North Node in February, and by the way, the North Node has been already there since July 2023, and it stays there till January 25, that closeness, that conjunction all the way through February becomes exact on the 19th of February. I'm afraid it's already quite close on the 14th. So when we have celebrations for those of you who are in a romantic relationship or would like to be, and you're going out or doing something for February 14th, Valentine's Day, that is going to be deeply healing. It'll be perhaps an opportunity for you to overcome something, overcome some restriction in relationship, because it's in that axis of self and other. So Chiron in Aries, for those of you who were born sort of late 1960s, I think from like 67 through 74 or 73 or something like that. I forgot my dates. But anyway, those of you who have Chiron in Aries, you are going to be experiencing this as your Chiron return, this period of 2018 until 2026. So this may be something affecting some of you in terms of the Chiron return, and then it becomes, of course, even more significant. The degrees between 15 of Aries and 19 of Aries are really important all the way through the beginning of 2024. So from the beginning of January, all the way through April, there is this movement of both Chiron and the North Node between the 15th and the 19th degree. And Chiron is moving forward, the North Node is moving backwards. So Rahu always goes backwards. It's always moving retrograde. I use the true node, so it's sometimes going forward, but the vast majority of the time it's retrograding. And so that conjunction is happening exactly on the 19th, and you can really take notes around that time, because there's something that's going to show up potentially in terms of how you foresee your future. How you want to go forward in your future. So quite exciting time. You can add 2 or 3 degrees on either side of that to see how that might affect all of you. And then in March, we have on the 25th, we have a penumbral lunar eclipse on the 25th of March. And that's something that will affect your 5th house of love affairs, children, creativity. So again, we're very much in the axis of self and other, but this time we're looking at the expression of love, or the expression of desire, or the expression of creativity. But there's something here with the South Node. So the moon is there with the South Node. It may not be exactly what you had hoped, or maybe that you're recognizing that that's not really doing you any good. And that could be part of what you're realizing in February, that perhaps you're recognizing that there's something that you're doing in terms of attraction or love or desire nature that is actually undermining your own future, undermining your own desire for your vision for life. This can also be connected to children. So there may be something that you're having to let go of in terms of your own children, if you have that. Or it's the feeling that now you're ready to let go of your children. They're older, they're doing their thing, and now it's about focusing on you, but you're kind of showing up and saying, now I have to decide something for myself, and it's really not it's not the forte of a Gemini to have to decide something for themselves. So so this could be challenging this spring. It might be challenging you to have to step up in a completely different way without the usual way of connecting with other people. I would have to see your natal chart, as always, to be able to tell you more specifically how that might affect you. In April, we then have a total solar eclipse and a massive stellium in your 11th house. Now, the 11th house is actually a very lucky place. It's much like the 9th house, it's a fortunate place. It's something that allows you, and even the 5th house where you're having this axis, the 11th and the 5th are fortunate houses. They can bring you flashes of luck, flashes of opportunity. And at this time now, here's where that 19 degrees comes back in, because at this time, the sun, the moon, and Chiron are all exactly at 19 degrees. Now the nodes have moved back to the 15th degree. And so we're really tying in something between January and April that is going to come to a kind of a head. It's coming to a crescendo point, having something to do with how you're healing, how you're looking after yourself, how you dare, maybe how you dare to show up, how you dare to express yourself going forward in life. So that exact conjunction with Chiron and the sun and the moon, I will be definitely talking quite a bit about when the time comes in April. March and April are going to be quite significant times because of these eclipses and so many other things, as you'll see. There's a massive stellium there in the 11th house. So there's a really enormous focus on what it is that you want out of life. This can be something to do with how you earn money, what's coming in. Now, be careful with Jupiter and Uranus in your 11th house. There may have been losses, financial losses. There may have been things that you regret in terms of either investments or how you may have given money away, or there may be something that you had to compromise, or there may have been a change in terms of your values around money or around how you spend, how you earn money, and so on. So this may be just showing that up. Again, it depends on your natal chart, but either way, the 11th house can also be very good in terms of new sources of inspiration around money earned from the thing that you do. That's with Aries in the 11th, you're super creative, and that's what makes a Gemini so kind of outgoing socially. That Aries energy just has them kind of jumping in, very impulsive, but not a whole lot of stick-to-itiveness, if you know what I mean. It's like that inconsistency. It's like all systems go, but there's no follow through. And this is one of the things that it's one of the reasons that Gemini has that reputation, is that 11th house ruled by Mars and Aries. Right. And of course, that depends on what your Mars is like as well, right? That depends on so many things. And your ruler, Mercury, is retrograde through most of April. So from the 1st until the 25th, you've got Mercury retrograding all the while that these eclipses and then the Jupiter and Uranus conjunction are happening. And so you might be feeling that you have to backtrack over a lot of things to finally be able to move forward after. So probably you'll feel much more grounded and ready to take action as of May, but that you might find that things are a little bit too fast and furious in April. You do like that. You do like a bit of chaos in your life, Gemini, but that's what I meant at the beginning when I said focus, learn how to focus, get your priorities sorted. And Mars, for example, does represent, goals, your short-term goals. So keep a list handy so you don't forget what you're supposed to be doing on any given day, so you don't get distracted. It's kind of like that turtles energy, where you kind of get distracted on your way to doing something else, and then you forget, and you feel a sense of lacking accomplishment because you've just got yourself spread too thin. So lists throughout the period of March, April, May. Now, this period of May is really wonderful and absolutely brilliant energy for you, Gemini. You're blessed with Jupiter moving into your first house, and it stays there from the 25th of May all the way into early June of 2026. Early June? Sorry, I have to check the date for that. I'll come back to you during the year to be more precise with that. But it's a year, let's say, that you've got Jupiter in your first house. And that's just a massive blessing. It's a whole new cycle that you're going to begin in terms of your sense of how you act in life, how you reach out into life. Jupiter rules your 10th house. It rules your house of relationship. So there's just a lot going on for you, lots of opportunities, lots of expansion, a sense of real positivity, a real sense of potential that may get you biting off more than you can chew. So again, get the lists out and make sure that you are under promising and over delivering, Gemini, so that you don't burn too many bridges if it's the opposite. With Jupiter in the first house, we can stretch ourselves too far, and Jupiter in Gemini is known for that tendency to be scattered. And I'm speaking as somebody who has Jupiter in Gemini, so no hard feelings there at Gemini. So the last week of May in particular is going to be extremely uplifting. And then when Jupiter moves into Gemini, it will have just been conjunct the sun and moon, and it stays in conjunction to the sun and moon. So the first few degrees, like the first 5, 6, 7 degrees of Gemini are really, really uplifted in May, the end of May. There is also a trine to all of those planets, so Jupiter, Sun, and Venus, trine to Pluto at that time. And so that's really exciting because there's a real opportunity for something to be accomplished there. And then Jupiter is also sextiling Neptune towards the end of May. So all really great, really. I think the exact date is the 24th, so just before Jupiter leaves the 12th house for you, it's going to be sextiling Neptune to the 10th. And so there might be something there where it's about how you are letting go or recognizing patterns that might be holding you back from success in your career success. The 12th house, Jupiter can be very self-indulgent. It can be holding you, it can be making you kind of want to hold back and retreat rather than dive in. And Neptune in the 10th can have you for quite some time now, since 2011, beginning of 2011, that can have you a bit confused about your purpose. But when we put them in sextile from the 12th to the 10th, that can be, especially with Pluto going into your 9th, it can be a deeply spiritual connection there, something really, really wise and profound showing up potentially through April, through an insight there that is kind of out of the blue. So well done for you. That's going to be quite the birthday for most Geminis. And then on the 30th of June, we have Saturn, which is in your 10th house, getting you to be more mature, more strict about your goals, your ambitions, your career. By the way, I have a video on Saturn in Pisces, so you can get more information about that. And rather than me telling you all that again, but the Jupiter that's going into your first house is going to be squaring that Saturn. So Saturn is retrograding on the 30th of June at 19 degrees. And by the time August comes around, then Jupiter is going to be squaring a retrograde Saturn at 17 to 18 degrees of Gemini and Pisces. So if you have 17, 18 degrees of either Gemini or Pisces, or 2 degrees or 3, perhaps on either side of that, that's going to affect you very powerfully, or any planets that you might have there. By the way, Jupiter will be conjunct Mars at that time. You're going to have Mars in your first house, Gemini. You're going to have Mars in your first house in the summertime. So for most of August until Mars goes into Cancer on the 4th of September. And hey ho, Mars goes into Cancer on the 4th of September. That's your second house. And so that is where you're going to put a lot of effort, a lot of drive into money. Mars rules your 11th house. Remember, that's the house of earned income. It also rules your 6th house, which means you're going to be working for it. So 6th house is where you put in your day-to-day grind, your day-to-day work, or your habits. Mars in the 2nd house is going to have you feel more ambitious towards money. There can be issues around family. There might be something that you require to take responsibility for, or there's some vision of what you need to reorganize. Mars in the second can cause some tension or disruption with the family. But again, it depends on your natal chart. It's not just because Mars rocks up in the second that you're going to suddenly have issues with the family. That would have to be inherently there in the chart, or we would have to see what Mars is also aspecting. But Mars is going to stick around. You'll have to get used to this energy, Mars in the second. It's going to be there basically from September through till April 2025, with a couple of dips into Leo, and then it's going to be in Leo, your third house, until June of 2025. Like, it's just crazy. So beginning of June. And so we have where is it now? Mars is going retrograde at 6 degrees of Leo. So remember I mentioned that full moon that we're having in Leo, 5-degree full moon. Now on the 5th of December, Mars will station retrograde. It goes just into your third house, communications, your neighbors, your expanded family, siblings, your goals, your talents and skills. And then it comes back into Cancer, and it stays there in Cancer all the way through April, because Mars retrogrades are long, 7 degrees, 7 months rather, if it's only in one sign, but this is extended because it's covering the two signs. So we've got almost 10 months of Mars in either Cancer or Leo, so either your second or your third house. And so you're going to be putting a lot of effort into issues of stabilizing your income, getting serious about work, getting serious perhaps about education, particularly because Pluto is up in the 9th house. This might be also about transforming your beliefs, transforming your sense of how you engage in terms of your life philosophy, how you how you see your purpose, how you engage with people on a higher level. There will be on the 3rd of November an opposition between Mars and Pluto, and that is between your 2nd and 8th house. So there may be something here that is tying in issues around inheritance or issues around shared resources. It can be about how you express things. So Mars in the 2nd and also the 3rd can have you speaking powerfully. Again, that depends on your natal chart. It's not simply because of that you're going to be speaking powerfully. It can also be a bit harsh, or it can be that you create some issues, or that you might get into trouble with your communications, the way that you express yourself. It's not guaranteed. Again, it depends on your natal chart, but just do pay attention to that. Be careful not to cause any undue harm or frustrations with people. This can be with regards to marriage partners, business partners, or even your family in that whole period of the Mars going through Cancer and Leo. We also have later in September, the very first eclipse in the Pisces and Virgo axis. So that's on the 18th of September, 25 degrees. We have an eclipse that is bordering Aries and Pisces. So the nodes, North Node is in the 11th house, and the sun, the moon is in the 10th house. And we then have the sun in Mercury ruled Virgo in the 4th house. So there's something here about work. Again, there's quite a lot of themes around money and work in your chart this year. Your sense of purpose, how you reach out into the world. So there might be a realization about what you want and what you need to do. What are my obligations? And realizing something about your obligations. So this eclipse is happening conjunct Neptune. So it may not necessarily be clarifying. It may be something that actually adds to a bit of a sense of confusion. So yeah, that's a partial lunar eclipse. It's not terribly powerful, but it certainly introduces now the North Node moving into your 10th house. So that's certainly going to be something you're grappling with from the period of the sort of middle of January of 2025 all the way through mid-2026. So you're introducing that already in September. And then we have a solar annular eclipse in Libra, again, back in that same axis, the Aries-Libra axis, where it's been since July of 2023. And so that's in your 5th house. It's about your creativity. And so there we have the sun and the moon, and they are at 10 degrees of Libra, and that's conjoining your chart ruler, Mercury. And of course, it's a south node eclipse, so there's something here that you're letting go of. It may be to do with your desires, or it can be something to do with a pattern of behavior with love relationships, or a lover, or something to do with your children, where the children are moving in a new direction. You're letting go of something. This, if it's related to work or business, there's a way of being in business, there's a way of being in commerce, or as a self-employed person that is no longer appropriate, no longer functional, and it has to be modified, has to change. So because that's your ruler that's conjunct that eclipse, pay attention to what's going on there on the 2nd of October. Then finally in December, we have that Jupiter squaring Saturn, again, from your first house to the 10th house. This time it's at 14 degrees of Gemini. So if you have anything 2 or 3 degrees on either side of 14 degrees of Gemini or Pisces, this will be significant. And of course, that applies to any other placements that you might have there too, or any placements, in fact, in the mutable signs. And if you have anything in Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces in general at those degrees, that'll be quite impactful. Again, try not to be pulled in too many directions. Get really focused what it is that you need to do so that you can realize the success that you want. Because when Jupiter squares Saturn, there's an obstacle to success. There's a feeling of being stuck and not being able to proceed or benefit in the way that you would have liked to. So I wish you every success, Gemini. Have a wonderful year, and I'll see you in the next video.